We're started a series. We're about in the middle of a series, and it's called The One Thing. And we're using the same scriptures this week as we did last week. We're going to add a couple more to it, but I didn't print them out because I know after I gave them to you last week, you have them all memorized, and so no use repeating it. So those ones, the story of Jesus and Mary and Martha, and he said, the one thing is necessary. What was the one thing? What was the one thing he said to Martha? You're concerned about a lot of things, but one thing is necessary, and Mary has chosen it. Relationships. Yes. She was sitting at the feet of Jesus, learning, building, and cultivating a growing relationship with him. And we see that the life of Jesus Christ revolved around building relationships. And we, as a community, have to stay on course in building relationships with our Father through Jesus Christ. And Jesus said that if you're going to love me, you have to be in relationship, in healthy relationships with each other. And that is part of the proof of the fact that you love me. In other words, you can't be in conflict with, I can't say Juan and I don't like him, but I love God. That's a contradictory statement. Are you with me? And so it lets me get away with a lot of stuff because you got to love me. God said so. So we have to live in community with each other and with God. So the one thing is a growing relationship. Now, we talked about some of the stuff that will distract a body or a church, and we said that some of them get together and they become like a police organization. You got to do this, don't do that. And that will lead them off track. And there are also social issues which will take a church off track. And these social issues are important. I mean, we have to look after poor, and there are things that we must address. But what happens, and one of the dangers is when a church becomes so focused on it, it becomes their one thing. It starts showing up in the sermons, starts showing up in the classes, starts showing up all over the place. And so there's a constant making sure that the main thing stays the main thing. And the main thing is a relationship to God through Jesus Christ and relationships with each other. We pool our gifts until we become mature, which is like Jesus. And so some of the people would, with the legalistic tinge, would say maturity is short hair. Oh, you're good. Okay. And they have rules, and this is mature. But in Ephesians it says, no, we are to be mature and working towards becoming like Jesus Christ. So here, our relationships with each other and with God lead us to that kind of a maturity. Now, the social issues, Jesus had to face them as well, and we have to address them. He had to feed the hungry. There was problems with healing the sick, clothe the naked, visited those in prisons, and all of those things would happen. And yet what? He stayed on course with his main mission. Are you tracking with me? Now, I don't mean this in any denigrating way. I better not give you a name, but I have a church will take a social issue, and that becomes their driving force. And you ask, what's that church? And they become known for something other than their relationship and building relationships with God and bringing people into the kingdom and making disciples. So I'll leave it there. Okay. Now, Jesus, even in offhanded ways, would validify and make valid this opinion that the most important thing was a relationship to God through him. And if you remember when Mary poured the expensive oil all over him, and they were Judas, who kept the money, and John says, I think he's stealing it. But anyways, Judas said, why didn't you sell that and we could give it to the poor? And Jesus says, you're always going to have poor to minister to, but you won't have me. So build your relationship with me. And sort of you can see these confirmations coming here and there where he kept saying, you have to build a relationship with me in order to have presence with the Father. And our service, we have to serve the Lord, but the service can't take the front either because it's a byproduct of a relationship. Does that make sense? I am, Linda's not here, so I can tell you this. It's my luck, she's listening to the internet, but I'm a mommy's boy and I'm spoiled because I was mom's favorite. There, Peter, take that. I'd come in at 10 or 11 o'clock at night after work and she'd make me a steak or whatever. And to be honest, I'm kind of used to being waited on. That's the way boys should be raised. And when you're married, as your wife does, hop to it, woman. Now that I'm married, I don't mind making the coffee and taking it to her. I don't mind doing stuff. I don't mind serving her. Why? Because of the relationship. You do things in a response to the relationship. In other words, we don't serve out of duty, we serve out of love and response to God. It's a natural outflow of a close relationship. In fact, I used to play hockey most 3 or 4 nights a week. And we got married, and that dropped to 1 night a week. But I didn't mind. I was married. I was in a relationship. You serve when you're in a relationship. You serve each other, and you serve God. So there's a lot of things that people can fall into. And you'll feel, Melchius and I, every once in a while, you just sort of remind us to keep the main thing the main thing. The main thing the main thing, not to be distracted. And people will sometimes drop information off and they want us to join this political party or make that. I only have authorization as a minister of the gospel of Jesus Christ. That's all I have authority for. And that's all as a body we have authority for. And we have to keep the main thing always. So here, there are other things that will distract churches, and Melchius is going to introduce one more thing that will draw a church off the main thing.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. This is Cape Coral Community Church, and we have the best show in town. And you came in here to receive what God has for you this morning. So be ready to have your socks blast off. Welcome, everyone. And we have, the pastor of the year in Cape Coral. Did you know that? Yes, that wasn't too exciting. We have the pastor of the year in Cape Coral. And here he is. Welcome, Pastor David Rigby.
You can take the presentation of the gospel into a show. And the theater, it's the same thing every week where you try to outdo last week and the participants are passive and all of the action's on the stage and it's built around a star. We don't do that here. If we had me on the billboard, we'd have thousands here. But a community of Jesus Christ. Now, the tricky part of it is that we must always operate with excellence. We must always be telling the story with our best, and it has to have a high quality. And it's hard to tell whether it's a show for the purpose of filling seats, because our mission is to invite people to come in to become disciples of Jesus Christ. And so our objective is to reach and invite people and join us as we learn how to walk with God. The problem is you can't overstep the mark and become a production, and the main objective is to entertain. Now, here's a serious problem with how that came about. and why that became a problem, probably in the first place. It is that we have made a very minor and yet profound and devastating change to the Great Commission. You and I were asked to go to seek people. Jesus came, I came to seek and to save those who are lost. And we are continuing and inviting people to become children of God. The apostles keep it up and they say, now that you're a child of God, just come boldly into your Father's presence. He wanted to have a relationship with you. Now, through Jesus Christ, you have it. Stand in front of Him and be the child that He wants you to be, and enjoy the relationship. And then He said, go and invite everybody. Invite them in to become children of the living God. But the command is, you go and invite. For Jesus, when He came to earth, He went around everywhere gossiping the gospel, which means preaching. And so they just went everywhere talking about this wonderful thing that happened. Jesus had come and He demonstrated His power over every principality and laid down the proofs that He was worth following. And then the apostles followed, and they went everywhere talking about this marvelous thing that had happened. Jesus had come to give us access to God. He died, but that's not the end of the story. He's alive today and sitting at the right hand of the Father. And then the early church for 300 years went around the world gossiping the gospel or telling everybody about this marvelous thing that had happened, which gives us access to God the Father, who came seeking us so we could have a relationship with the Creator of everything that we see. And that Father sent His Son so that we could be in what He originally created. He created us the first place and came and walked across the earth and would talk to Adam, and He wanted to have fellowship. It got broken, but He restored it. He wouldn't leave it broken. And the wonderful message of the church for 300 years was they went everywhere telling everybody about this. And then what happened? We started to build churches. You tracking with me? And we went from going, saying, you want to learn about Jesus? Get over here. I'll tell you about it. Oh, the time's not right for you? It's okay. I like the time. It's 10, or we're not going to tell you. And the church has evolved into they can evolve into something that's self-serving. Does that make sense? And if you don't believe so, just say that in order to reach the community, we have to change the time of worship or something like that. Try that. That'll shorten your ministry. Where do you go? Yes. Or change an order of worship, or do something that would accommodate those who are seeking Jesus Christ. You tracking with me on this? We have to be a flexible, sensitive movement led by the Spirit of God. And rather than having to produce something interesting enough to hold people's attention, the church should be out presenting the gospel in the places where the people are. You tracking with me? Well, it's so hard to get people to come to church these days. Well, who gave you the authority to ask them to come to church these days? I can only follow this thing, the owner's manual. What are you talking about as far as instructions go? Now, the church is an absolutely marvelous thing, especially in the Western Hemisphere. We use it as a tool to introduce people to God, and it's where we talk and where we learn. But remember, it is something that we added to the story. You with me? We added it. And so it has to be a tool that is carefully used and doesn't dominate. Better be careful here, but we could build a $100 million cathedral to the honor and glory of God and suck money out of the Church of Jesus Christ like crazy. But that's not our mission. Our mission is to go and tell people. And if you don't do that, then you have to have something which would cause people to want to come, and the tendency is to go into show mode. Now, Jesus was allergic to that kind of stuff, and he would sometimes call the crowd. Remember when he fed the crowd, 5,000 with the boys' fish and loaves, and then he and the disciples took off, and they said, "Jesus, how did you get over there? You didn't have a boat. How did you get on this side?" And he didn't even tell them how, but he did call them on it. He says, "You guys followed me around the lake, not because of anything. You're here because I fed you. You're not listening to how I'm teaching you to relate to the Father." And he was constantly pushing back. Listen, let the main thing be the main thing. I'm telling you how to connect with God the Father. And he would get into conflicts with the scribes and Pharisees. He says, you guys are making it hard to connect to the Father, and the Father wants to make it easy. And so our message is connect with God, connect with God, connect with God. And we still put on a best of story as we can in contemporary voice to tell people about Jesus Christ, but it cannot dominate the message of the church. It can't become the main thing is the show. The message is the main thing, and it has to stay the main thing. So when I say go out and tell people, what does that mean? I think sometimes we would panic a little bit because we think, oh, that means I got to go door to door, I got to hand out flyers, or I got to stand on a street corner, get a soapbox and yell at people. I don't think that's a good idea myself. But tell me, where do we meet people? Where would we tell the story that's natural? You don't have to get crazy to tell people about Jesus. It's a natural outgrowth of our life, right? How about work? There's an idea. But you know the problem with that? If you become a witness at work, you have to do good work, be conscientious, and high integrity. Well, I don't think I'm going to talk about Jesus at work then. Where else, out of a natural flow of our life, when the early church went around just interacting with people and bringing into the conversation Jesus Christ, where else would we connect with people?
Neighbors.
Where? Neighbors? Coffee. Hallelujah. Yeah, it's my cathedral. Where else would we naturally just have an opportunity to meet with people and Jesus Christ would be in the... Where? Restaurant. As long as you're buying, sister. Restaurant, not restroom. So where else would we just naturally introduce? Gymnasium. Yeah. Ball game.
Waiting online on the supermarket.
Waiting what?
Online.
Online. There's a lot of things go online. It'd be nice to have Jesus. Oh, waiting in the supermarket. Oh, in stores.
My pool party.
Traffic. Yeah, I see a lot of people encouraging, but they have to keep all their fingers up. All right. Now, you don't have to get weird to live for Jesus Christ. I tend to be weird, but that's a separate matter from Jesus Christ. We have natural and divine appointments at times where God uses us. Now, one of the things that may make us uncomfortable, and I think it does, is, sure, but how do I bring up Jesus Christ? And I forget who it was Andy Stanley or somebody, but we are looking at how to share your faith without losing it. And how do you naturally just talk about Jesus? And in the fall, if you're interested in how do I, in a relaxed manner, in a natural tone, in multiple settings, would I be an ambassador for the King? How do you do that? Now, let's get back to the privilege that we have in the West. A friend of ours in Ghana, he doesn't build many churches, but he's planted 40 of them, over 40. And then those churches planted other churches, and then five of the churches he planted moved into another country, and they planted churches. And so I have him on an interview, and maybe I get a chance to play it for you, but I said, how many from your initial going to Ghana, and you started that first group in your living room gathering around a coffee table, how many people now would you say are in the kingdom because of that? And he says, I don't really know, like there'd be 1,200 or so, but by the time they send in their next month's report, there's more. So it just keeps moving and growing all the time. And I have difficulty knowing exactly how many people are in the kingdom. And how did that happen? It happened for one guy having some friends around a living room coffee table, telling them about gossiping the gospel, just talking about Jesus, looking at the owner's manual, and finding out how to connect with God. And there's 40 churches in the one country, there's 8 in another. And if you will make yourself available to God, God will build his kingdom through you. We offer our bodies to God, which is our reasonable act of worship. Now, I want to get back to how can we take advantage of and use the church as a tool or as an opportunity to build the kingdom of God. Here, we are privileged in that people, we go out and of course, represent Jesus Christ in all of those settings, but also when we come in here, people come in here, sometimes they are moving in or something and they're looking for a community and they want to join in and learn every week with us how to connect with God and become mature in Christ. And so they just become part of the community, go along the journey with us, and every week we learn. Now, we have an obligation to God who wants to have a connection, a relationship with them. Although we aren't in these cases going and compelling them to come in, we are rather receiving those who came in. You with me? So a lot of the work has been done, but I'm telling you, that's a sacred trust when someone comes in here. We've said that our offerings are a sacred trust. If the people that like the compassion ministry that we do, they have to be lean, serve the Lord, and have high integrity. We just are very careful with, and if we send money overseas, we know who's on the other end, and it doesn't evaporate on the way over. And everything that comes in is sacred. It belongs to God. And it was so careful in handling that stuff. But I need to tell you, souls and people are the most sacred trust that we can have. And we must accept the responsibility for people who God gives us a privilege of connecting with and joining the journey to learn about God. Now here, I think that we are pretty good on doing that. But what did we say last week? One of the primary criticisms of the church is what? They're cliquey, right? They all belong to cliques. Nobody will let me in. And that doesn't seem fair that they would say that. I want to show you just a short clip here. It's about 5 minutes. And it is how a friendly church like ours could be criticized as being cliquish. Does that make sense? How could we be criticized as being cliquish? And in this video, no one is doing anything wrong. It's just a normal church, but these people would leave saying that church is cliquish. It's two parts. First one's about 2 minutes, 2.5. And it's what it felt like to those people to go into a church. And the second one is the actual church they went into and what really happened. So first, what it felt like. Second of all, what happened. It's just when we go to church, we tend to be oblivious. Somebody comes in and we're just talking to people. Getting back to the sacred trust, people are dear to the heart of God. He died for people. He wants to be in connection with people. And if anyone comes into a community, that is the most valuable gift, is somebody who will become part of the body of Jesus Christ. It's a responsibility and obligation. We were told to be diligent about welcoming, accepting, and having people join us on the journey of discipleship. Now, all you have to do to be accused of being a clique is nothing. They just walk by, and rather than noticing there was a guest and going over and introducing yourself and making them feel welcome, we just stayed in conversation. Now, Jim, you and I would never do that, but other people might. Like, we would stop right there and go over to the guest and welcome them, right? But some of you wouldn't. No. So what am I saying? I'm saying this guest is a valuable commodity to God. They did not walk through the door by accident. And you are on duty for the King with a guest. We're getting better and better at this. The one thing that does happen, though, is during that greeting, it can be so awkward for a guest. Why? We all know each other. We're all greeting each other. I know some of you build a campfire and put wieners on it and stuff like that, and we're just welcoming one another. You must be conscious of the fact that there could be standing there someone watching us be friendly. Amen. And that we have to be at our best to make sure they know we're glad to come here. We are glad. This is a friendly church. Now you have to take that one step further and express that. And to say, we're glad you came. And join my campfire. Here's a hot dog. And invite them to the greeting time. You tracking with me? You see how we really are a friendly church, but you can inadvertently, if you're not careful, you can do things which make it look like you're not as welcoming and as warm as you are. So you can't overstate the fact of how valuable people are to God. Do you know what I mean? Even Navy SEALs are important to God. You never understand them, but God loves them. Everybody's important to God. And so we have to have this burned right into ourselves. There is a valuable child of the living God. I need to go to them. The one place, now, here we keep track of, we have guests coming in. You didn't sign up, but we got you. And so we know who comes in. And then we have a lunch with the pastors. I get to meet Melchius and I, and sometimes we invite our wives. It depends, you know. And so pastor's lunch. And then we invite them to 101, tell them who we are, what we are. And some people don't make it past that. And then we have like 201. 301, and we see where are people dropping out? Where do they quit coming? And there's a couple places where we need to just be more sensitive as a community. In here, if there's a few weeks between the time they come, you usually get a reasonable welcome on the way in. I think that we have to be still conscious, and you can't continue talking when a guest walks by. Do you know what I'm saying? You don't feel like you're being cliquish, but if they walk by Jim and I and we're talking and we don't even acknowledge they're there, he and I could be commented on. They were so cliquish. Are you with me? And so just our sensitivity has to be higher. And after they've been here a few weeks, we talked about this last week, it's difficult in any church to get from a guest to become part of the community. And so it's in here. What do we do? How do we, and we talked about, now thank you for the cards. I had a stack of cards like that. It was tremendous, the response. I know because I gave them out to everybody and then stood at the end of the aisle till they handed them in. But anyways, a large response, and a lot of them had to do with, we need to be inviting people into our home for lunch and things like that and connecting with them personally. And that is right on. When somebody's here, until we get them into community, where do you become community in this church? Malchus and I were working on this yesterday. And how many groups did you say? 12 groups, about 12 community groups. And so when they come here, how do they get to know people? Well, they can find something interesting. We're doing one which is like a flyover of faith and get the big picture. We're doing another one which might be like how to share your faith without losing it. And some of them are walked through the entire Bible. Some of them are topical. And then when you get in there, you get to know people. Here's a fact that if people don't know 6 people by name within 6 weeks, they have to be pretty pig-headed to hang out and to break into the church. They just need to know people here when you get here. And this is how we do it. We get them into a group of people who welcome them. Now, every one of us here has the ministry. There's no professional scooper-upper. It's the community that welcomes people. Are you with me? Each of us have to lift our head and welcome a guest. And there also, when I used to travel and do consulting in churches, I would start, and one of the first things I would say was that in this church, God has placed every gifted person that He needs to get this done. He gifted the church so that it could function at a high level. In this church, there are people who have gifts of hospitality. Or whatever. So, their place is on here to help people be enfolded and welcomed and let them know we're glad you're here. And if you don't know if you do or not, just invite me over, have a meal or something like that, and I'll tell you whether you have a gift of hospitality. And if I don't know, we can try it again. But there are people who just love to have people entertain them. Or take somebody to a restaurant. Why? It's hard to break into a church. And I think I was telling you that I found this out with Teresa, who's not a shy bud. But after 8 weeks, they still didn't feel they were part of the church. And nobody was inviting them in. Are you tracking with me? Everybody's, hi, how are you? Great to see you. How's your dog? Good. My dog's fine too. Cat's fine. Yeah, everything's fine. Kids are fine. It's great, 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 great. And there's no deeper connection. It's solid, shallow, superficial. We need to have those who have the gift of hospitality. Use your gift now to help people become part of the community. Did you guys get handed out those, do you have cards in there? Yeah. Would you do something for me? Would you take those out and there's a pen? And so in here, when we have someone in, how do they know that we care? Well, number one, Jim and I don't keep on talking when they walk by us. We acknowledge it. Number two, people who have the gift of hospitality, exercise your gift. That's why you have it. I got a great gift of hospitality. You're at my house, the fridge is over there. Get it yourself. So I just want them to feel comfortable. But the community of Christ has to be constantly inviting people into the community of Christ. It's not a closed circuit. It's open. And would you put on there, I would love to be part of hospitality. I don't cook, but I'll take somebody to a restaurant. Why? Because it's important to Jesus Christ. That's why. And I would be glad to do that. And there was a few comments on that's what should happen. And you know what I'm doing now? I know that's what should happen. Now I'm saying, okay, will you do it? Trick. And we're done now, but I just want to add one more thing. Guys, I'm serious as a heart attack here. It's too easy to say that I'm a Christian because I go to church. Our life is to be lived outside of the church. Hospitality, friendships. For instance, we need to, when the youth start playing again, and the ball games, and they have concerts, and they have drama, you need to go and watch them, learn their name, and tell them you enjoyed what they did. Is it your cousin who does the drama? We went to one of hers. Yeah, and then she went to New York or something. I'm over it, though. We have to participate in the community. We are the body of Christ. Is this starting to ring bells now? And so we have to come alive outside of the building. And every place we go, we are an ambassador for the King. And there's opportunities coming up, but we can be not only welcoming in our heart, which you are. And I think week after week, we talk to people, and they say that this is one of the warmer churches. They've been to 2 or 3, and when they came here, they got accepted, and we're doing a good job. I'm telling you, I would like to take it up even another notch. I think that every person who comes in here who we're entrusted with by God should be loved so they never want to leave. It's like a cockroach. You can't get rid of them. That's how they're valuable. Are you with me? But it takes the community being the body of Christ. Would you stand with me?